7 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order, and as is our custom, we'll rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're open for public comment. Is there anyone in the live audience who wishes to comment? Seeing none, let's turn to the virtual audience. We do have one. Okay, please identify yourself and have the floor.
Good evening, my name is Julius on Schoolhouse Road. I'd just like to address the agenda item that you have tonight slated to discuss funding for a consultant for the police commission. As a taxpayer in town, I think this request is irresponsible. As a commission, you've spent over $10,000, and I think the figure is actually higher than that. Already seeking legal counsel, only to have Chairman Wilcox ultimately disagree with the requested opinions that were provided to you. Given Chairman Wilcox's propensity to value his own opinion over that of all other counsel, why would you want the town to spend more money only to disagree with their perspective? Additionally, each of you campaigned on your qualifications to be police commissioners. Several of the commissioners have been on the commission for several years. If you were qualified to be elected, why do you now need a consultant to tell you how to do your jobs? After 8 months in office, we're all still waiting for you to actually do something. I'm afraid that Chairman Wilcox's attachment to his own rightness stands in the way of actually leading the commission forward. This is preventing the commission from seeing issues objectively. I'd ask you to give up amending the bylaws. They don't stand in the way of you doing your jobs. Stop with the agenda of opposing Chief Spira and begin working together collaboratively. I'd like you to determine how best to move forward as a commission that actually works together rather than constantly in opposition to the chief and one another. You don't need to spend money on consultants that you won't agree with. Do the job you were elected to do or give up that job. The current commission is operating no differently or effectively than the previous one. If you were to try to work together toward common goals, you might begin to be more effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
There are no other hands raised.
All right. Let's go on to item 3, discussion and possible action on the meeting minutes for June 27th.
So moved.
Move to approve.
Move to approve, please.
Second.
Any discussion? Jennifer, as I said before, you did a great job.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Is the chief with us virtually?
I am, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay to proceed with the executive reports?
Yes, please.
Great. So commissioners, you have the fiscal year 23 operating budget printouts. Obviously nothing of major significance. We've only been in the fiscal year 23 budget for 25 days now. So it would be alarming if there were significant expenditures already. The only thing that I would like to point out that normally we do see this time of year is the complete expenditure, or at least 90% of the expenditure of the fuel line item. Obviously, the town has not entered into a contractual agreement at this point with purchasing both gasoline and diesel because of the volatility of the market. So the first selectman is watching the market very closely, as I'm sure all municipal CEOs are doing. And when it's the appropriate time, we will enter into a contract for the balance of the fiscal year. But right now we're paying whatever it would be at the municipal pump price as we schedule deliveries. And we don't know that until we actually need a delivery to be made. The fiscal year 22 summary will come from the finance department, and hopefully we'll have that available for commissioners in August for their August meeting. Okay to go on, Mr. Chairman?
Are there any questions on this? No? Okay, please do continue.
Great, thank you. So the off-budget accounts have been provided for you for your review. On the summary sheet, you'll note that everything in blue has not changed. The ones highlighted in white have changed. There are summaries now at the end of each one of those line item detailed sheets that tells you exactly what has changed, and then the detail should explain why it has changed. So if anyone has any questions on the police uniform awards account, emergency dispatch, police admin, or driver safety fund, I'd be more than happy to hear them and attempt to either answer them now or get the answers to you.
I think we're good.
Okay, great. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, what I'd like to do is combine personnel matters, which is 4C, and professional development update 4E. I think we can consolidate those two if that's okay with you.
That's perfect.
Great. So just an update on former patrolman Newhouse at this point. At last meeting, I spoke to you about her desire to stay on part-time and our desire to retain her part-time. Following our meeting, she decided that she was actually looking for more hours, but a different type of schedule that we were not able to offer her in accordance with our collective bargaining agreement. So she has resigned and has moved on to another agency. So we wish her well. Patrolman Schultz has completed all of his return to work requirements in accordance with his last chance agreement executed by himself and the police commission. So he is now back on patrol. He does not have his canine with him at this point on patrol because the canine must be recertified. And I'm working with the coordinator of the Connecticut State Police Canine Unit to schedule the required training sessions to make sure Canine Chase is qualified to be back on patrol. So that should happen over the next month and a half. Pleased to report that Patrolman Simpson has successfully completed field training, which means he's a true personnel asset at this point. So he is on patrol. He's actually on the midnight shift. I want to thank Patrolman White, who is his field training officer, who did an absolutely fantastic job in that role. He soon will be assigned Patrolman O'Connell as she enters the field training process. Master Sergeant Vanderhorst completed all the required training that he needed to take in accordance with the Police Officer Standards and Training Council's regulations, which included firearms qualification. As you can imagine, the 35+ year veteran was able to pass all those courses with ease. And he's eager to get a call for a private duty job so he can come in and help. So again, thank you for allowing us to hire him back, a true asset to have at the agency. Patrolman Torje and Mora attended basic interview and interrogation. The class was actually held at the Connecticut Police Academy, a week-long class, so we're happy that they were able to attend that. That course is one of the courses that we try to get all of our new patrolmen in and passed and certified in that technique within their first 3 to 5 years of employment. So now that the Police Academy is back open for business and not everything is virtual, you'll be hearing more and more police officers going there for their required training. Pat Hanley, our custodian, is still out of work, so we miss him dearly, and we'll just give him a public shout out of support. We are all certainly behind him during his time of need, and we cannot wait to see him return to work at some point. So with that staff update, Mr. Chairman, you had asked for kind of a summary on how many of our full-time law enforcement positions are filled. So right now, 23 of the 25 full-time law enforcement positions are currently filled. And a new national survey actually came out, I think it was in the last couple of weeks, that actually says that 93% of all police departments across the country are 93% staffed. And our current staffing levels at 23 put us, at 92%. We do know that we have 2 people who are in hiring processes for other agencies. We'll see how that works out. And we're in the middle of a hiring process ourselves. So they had just completed the written exam. They've applied and they've completed the physical agility exam. So we're going to get those folks in for their written exam. And then soon after that, I will interview them with a panel, and hopefully we'll find some suitable candidates to bring to you, hopefully maybe for your August meeting. If we find a real talent, a real find, the market is very thin. I may appeal to you, Mr. Chairman, to do a special meeting just to try to hire someone. A delay of just 1 or 2 weeks in the hiring market right now for law enforcement professionals can mean us losing a valuable, talented professional that we want to have. So as the process progresses, I will keep you in the loop, and hopefully we'll be able to do something sooner than later. If I could move on to the fleet update.
You may.
Great. So 3 vehicles have been sold so far in accordance with the authorization that was provided by the police commission to me. Total of $37,200 has been taken in from those 3 vehicle sales. One, my old car, very sad to see it go, actually. The first car I was ever assigned as a police chief, 2012 Ford Explorer, with 95 plus thousand miles on it now. That sold for $12,500. And two of our Fusions sold, one for $12,000 and one for $12,700. Again, that totals $37,200. If commissioners that have some tenure on the commission remember, our promise was to return $45,000 out of all 11 trades. So I think we're going to do okay. We have $7,800 left. One is up for auction now, and I think it's the high bid right now is $6,100. So we certainly have some more cars to go. I will keep the commission in the loop about that. If we far and exceed the $45,000, I may, Mr. Chairman, come back to you with some thoughts on how we can handle that, or some thoughts about our fleet and what we could possibly do. Not ready to do that tonight, but maybe for the August meeting, if these auctions continue to go the way that I expected them to.
I think you're doing great with the auction. It's panning out the way you had hoped and the way we had hoped. And I think we should all take a moment and thank you for having stuck with that one car for all these years, even though your contract entitles you to a new car every year. You've saved us a lot of money. Thank you.
Very welcome, sir. That concludes my reports for the evening.
Before we move on, is there any way that the town website can be updated with the new list of employees or changes in employees? Just because people ask me all the time, like, why do we have 50 police officers? And if I can refer them to this, they can clearly see that there's nowhere near that many.
Yeah, we can certainly update that list, Renee. I would say that if they think we have 50 police officers, if they could let me know where they are, I would love to put them to work. We have this strange issue right now of an increased amount of sick time that our personnel are using. We're not questioning that at this point, but certainly, obviously, we have the management right to do so. But yeah, when I hear that we have 50 police officers or 60 police officers, I always ask, do you know where they are? Because I would love to put them to work.
Carol?
Yeah, Chief, I'd like to thank you for the amount of money you're bringing in on the fleet too. I think that's fantastic. Last month you said something about the tactical armor, and you're going to check into the legality of what we can do with them. Have you gotten an answer?
No, we don't have an answer yet because we don't have the new tactical gear yet. So I want to make sure that the new gear has arrived and is working right, and then I will come to the commission with a proposal on how to dispose of the current tactical gear.
Okay, thank you.
I have one thing.
Sure.
The business barbecue, I thought that was great, and I'm so glad it was a success, and they brought treats for the canine, and that's awesome. I love it. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. I'm gonna cover that in more detail in Chief's comments.
Of course.
Any other questions?
Then, Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would ask is prior to the workshop, if you could just allow me to introduce the folks that will be presenting to you this evening, and obviously a little introduction to the workshop itself.
Certainly. Thank you for the suggestion. Next item is discussion and possible action on the creation of a working group for the purpose of developing an instrument and process for evaluating the position of chief of police. Before we get to that, I wanted to make an announcement. I'm very happy to be able to report that in a meeting with First Selectman Fortuna on Thursday afternoon, he authorized us to engage the firm of Berkman Moses, that's Chris Hodgson's firm, Berkham Moses, to work with us on the amended bylaws. That's great news for us. Okay, back to item 5. I would welcome a motion and a second on this, and then we can engage in the discussion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. This is my, well, I shouldn't say it's my concept, it's several people's concept. And what we are trying to do here is create a bipartisan 3-person working group on the majority party side. I think it'll be Ms. Nodar Francesco and me. On the minority party side, I invite the representatives to confer among themselves and let me know who would like to participate. I imagine that we will be working first among ourselves and then with the full commission and ultimately the chief to try to move this along. If there is any other discussion, I welcome it. Carol.
Just wondering when you'll know, like the deadline in which you'll have your working group so that you can set up a schedule.
I think it's going to be small enough that we probably don't need to set an artificial deadline. I expect that we'll hear from our Republican colleagues shortly.
Okay.
I just, I'm unfamiliar with procedurally with working group. How does that fall into legality of public meeting versus not a meeting, FOI, all that kind of thing?
I envision this as not being a public meeting. It is less than a quorum, and it will be charged only with bringing suggestions to the full commission. It will have no authority to make any decisions on its own, other than what it would recommend to the full commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think you will find that that is subject to the Freedom of Information regulations, but you might just want to call there to
Maybe,
confirm that.
and I have certainly intend to check that with the FOIA public representative, I think Tom Hennick. I want to confirm that. I have confirmed with him, by the way, that your suggestion of a retreat would not be a public meeting. So we can take that up in due course also.
Excellent.
Any other discussion?
Well, if the sticking point calling a subcommittee and that I would have to be the chair, I can just waive that, can I? If we have to technically make it a subcommittee?
You could waive it.
Okay.
I suppose.
No, it just that.
I don't think you have
If
to
this
do
moves
it.
us along
It's-
easier and quicker.
But does a subcommittee have to be in public or not?
Subcommittees are in public.
So you'd have to do this all at different meetings.
It would be.
Yeah. I think no matter what you call it, I think it will meet the requirements of a public agency meeting because the quorum requirement becomes not the number of members of the commission, but the number of people in the subcommittee, working group, whatever you call it. So if it's a 3-person group, obviously 2 people would constitute a quorum of the working group and or subcommittee or whatever you call it.
And would that work for you, Chief?
This is not my decision. I'm just merely giving the chairman some counsel on freedom of information regulations so we don't get ourselves in trouble.
Benefit of his long experience.
So Joe, you or me?
Let's have a conversation. We don't need to decide that tonight.
Okay.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second.
We've had discussion. If there's any more discussion, and if not, let's call the question.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Item 6, discussion and possible action regarding funding for a consultant to the Commission on Police Services. Again, I take responsibility for this one. We have a police department budget of in excess of $5 million. The chief has been the chief for nigh on 12 years. It seems to me that it is worth spending about 1/10 of what we spend on the department every decade to get outside eyes and ears to look at things and give the commission a sense of whether everything is going in the direction that it should be. I think that 50,000 is an outside number. I would hope that we could find, first of all, a description of what we need, and then if we have to bid it, we can bid it and move this forward. I want to raise it now, even though I understand that the budget process would take this up in next year's budget, because of the possibility, remote though it may be, that we could be in line either for ARPA funds, I doubt that, but possibly, or for the excess, the surplus that the town is enjoying this year. As I understand it, that'll be more than $1 million, much of which is going to be dedicated, as I understand it, to other important issues, important functions. But some may be available, and if we don't, as a commission, express a desire for it, we don't get to the plate at all.
Does it necessarily have to come out of the police budget, or would it be a separate line item for the town?
I beg your pardon?
Does it necessarily have to come out of the police budget, or could it be a separate line item for the town?
Oh, it would be a separate line item. It wouldn't come out of the police budget
Okay.
at all. This would be a budget for the police commission.
Okay, perfect.
Ms. Manning?
Last month, we had a motion, a second, and a 7-0 vote to authorize you to approach the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to discuss ways and means to establish a police commission budget, which this is like would be part of. Have you been able to get on the agenda or anything?
I've met with Mr. Fortuna on that, First Selectman Fortuna on that. And as I mentioned, he pointed me in the direction of the 2023-24 budget, which seems to me to be a long way away if there are funds that could be available now out of the surplus. So I'm just saying we can make the request, that I'm suggesting that we make the request. If the funds aren't there and we have to go through the next year's budget process, so be it. But this is just to put it on the table as a request from the commission for funding.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Please do.
Thank you. So in your introduction to this agenda item, you mentioned how much of the budget and you're looking to spend a specific percentage of that to make sure that we're budgeting properly. I just do want to remind the commissioners and the public that 90% of the police department's budget is attributed to salaries and benefits that are negotiated with the first selectman of the town of Old Saybrook. That 90% of our budget cannot be changed. So there's 10% up to discretionary spending. And when I say discretionary spending, please remember that also includes gasoline for the cars, electricity for the police department. So there's very little discretionary spending that any type of consultant would be able to look into. If the first selectman wanted to have outside folks look at how he's negotiating contracts, I would imagine he would be the one that would be seeking an expenditure to do that. But with 90% of our budget locked in to support our employees in accordance with their various union contracts, I'm not sure spending the taxpayers' money to have someone come back to say, well, you have to pay the people what they're entitled to be paid, and you must spend the healthcare benefits that are negotiated in their collective bargaining agreement. I would find that as a taxpayer, a waste of money.
Thank you for your perspective.
Are you looking for comment, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So what I heard tonight was slightly different from what I thought I heard last month, but I'm going to reflect on both. So I am unclear, is the consultant to review operations of the department, which I would find troubling because that's an end run around that long time discussion that this commission has voted on in the past to not look at now because we are pursuing accreditation, which is a very heavy lift and thoroughly examines the entire department. On the other hand, if this is a consultant for us as commissioners, I'm troubled by that as well. We are civilians. We are not supposed to bring to the table a level of expertise beyond being members of our community. That's what a public elected official is supposed to be. And we have all of the expertise in the departments. The Board of Education doesn't hire a consultant to help them understand how to run a school. It's not their job. The zoning board doesn't have a separate consultant come in regardless of price tag to help them do their job. So I find whether, I don't know which one you're talking about, but I find I'm strongly objecting to both. It just does not make sense.
Any other comments? Ms. Snyder Francesco.
I would have to say, first of all, that an organization like the Board of Education absolutely hires consultants to come in to look at the operations and how things are going. But I think what we're asking for at this point is the idea that the Board of Selectmen would carve out X amount of dollars for us to be able to hire some consultants in the future to be able to look at things that we would like, that we're questioning, that we would like to have some feedback on. We may or may not use that money. And quite frankly, I don't even know what $50,000, it seems like an extraordinary amount to me. I mean, it can probably be tailored down far more than that. But I think that your point about how we're looking at a budget that's $5 million. And yes, we are lay people. We do need, I believe, some kind of guidance to help make us effective. The chief is wonderful. I would just like some outside perspective. And I think that that is not a lot to be asking the taxpayers to help fund for us as volunteers in an organization of this size. So I am fully supportive of it. But again, it is the idea that we're asking selectmen to just carve out a piece of the surplus. I do not believe that ARPA is going to qualify us for this request, but certainly the surplus would. And I don't think it's a big ask.
Ms. Manning.
I agree with Commissioner Notaro in that, and I agree with you, Commissioner Maselli, we are lay people. I'm not a lawyer. The laws, especially regarding police departments, keep changing. And whatever we see the need of consultants, okay, I don't believe it's budget, but that's okay. We would then have some money that we could say, okay, this seems to be an issue. We have to make sure we're not doing something illegal. And so having some money put aside so that we can say we need this or we need that. And if we don't use it, it gets turned back to the town. I don't think it's unreasonable either, especially with all the changes in the laws. And, you know, I'm neither a lawyer nor a policeman, but I want to do my job and I want to do it right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I share a perspective?
All right.
Thank you, sir. So, you know, I imagine what would happen at a police commission meeting if I came before you and said, I need $50,000. I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know exactly what for, and I may not need all of it. I think some folks would say that might be an irresponsible ask. And I'm not saying your thought process is irresponsible. I'm talking about the $50,000 of taxpayer money. So whether it's surplus funds, quite frankly, ARPA funds, or new budget funds, it's all taxpayer money. I think that you should be part of the fiscal 24 budget process. So it's transparent and citizens have the right to voice opinions, pro and con, and then obviously vote just like all of us do in referendum on the budget, whether they support such an appropriation or not. But I think that you would want to create an RFP process first to find out exactly how much money you need. Whether this is for the police commission or the police department, the community will see it as cost of having a police department in the town of Old Saybrook, right? If we didn't have a police department, we wouldn't need a police commission. And if there was a police commission who wanted $50,000, well, we wouldn't need that as well. And so we have spent an exorbitant amount of time making sure that our operation continues to be as efficient and fiscally responsible as possible year after year after year, to make sure that the total cost of police services to the town of Old Saybrook remains at an appropriate level. Further, I would submit to you that you do have consultants that work on your behalf. One of them is the finance director, who is a paid professional who does a check and balance on our budget. So I would submit that if we had an ask of budgetary monies that did not have a direct correlation to a need in our operation, it would be her obligation to bring that to the attention of the Board of Selectmen, who then votes to pass on their recommended budget to the Board of Finance. Additionally, to Commissioner Manning's point, you do have counsel, right? The chairman announced this evening the first selectman's willingness to hire a new counsel for the commission. Well, not new, but engage in a different manner. Counsel that the commission has already relied on. You certainly have labor counsel that the commission has relied on a lot this past year. So you do have folks that the town has retained at your disposal to help you. And so my suggestion to the commission is that if they feel they need these funds, again, funds that will be attributed to having a police department in the town of Old Saybrook and becoming an additional burden to the taxpayer, that we do the process correctly, that we either do an RFP for exactly what you're looking for, we know the number and then ask that number in the process, or if you're looking to have a specific figure so that you can use up to that amount, then we do that through the budget process as well. Just kind of my thoughts.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
I just think the town provides us with the lawyers that we need to do our jobs properly.
I'm not asking for lawyers here. This is for consultant on police
Well,
services.
I agree. I disagree with asking the town taxpayers to pay more money. I just do.
If there are no other comments, let's call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
I'm not sure what the question
Yeah,
is.
neither am I.
I thought didn't we have a motion and a second? Did I miss something, Jennifer?
There was no motion.
Oh, okay. So I invite a motion to request the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to work with the commission to fund a budget for the commission in the amount of up to $50,000 for a consultant on police services.
So moved. Second.
Jen, can you read that, please?
Can I ask a clarifying question first?
Sure.
It may or may not affect the motion. Last month, you said $70,000 because you were also throwing in $20,000 for legal fees. So have you decided to not request $20,000 in taxpayer money for additional legal fees?
Given the undertaking by the first selectman to engage Burke and Moses for us, I don't see any need for that.
Thank you.
Can you read the motion, please?
Motion to request Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance to work with the commission to fund a budget for the commission up to $50,000 for consultants.
A consultant on police services.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye.
Discussion.
Oh, we,
We just did that.
We did discussion before the motion. Now the
Okay.
motion is on the
Okay.
table, so
all right.
I'm just lost my train of thought for a second. I'm sorry. Forget it. Keep going.
I just think if we're gonna get called out and people are gonna say that we're spending all this money, then why don't we get ahead of that?
What does that mean?
Like, well, the woman who just called in said we've already spent $10,000. So if you already have it in an account and we have it at our disposal, then we're not adding to anything. Nobody's saying we have to spend $50,000.
Correct.
But again, I think just clarifying my brain, I believe the public comment was regarding legal fees, which you are not included in this motion.
I thought it was including both, but the public comment
Oh.
said we have to do our job.
No, I meant the $10,000 that Renee mentioned, yeah.
Have we done any research to see if there's any other police commission in the state of Connecticut that has a budget to?
Would you like me to do that?
No. I'm not-
Really good at that.
But I'm just curious because I just don't, I feel like we're reinventing the wheel here. And that's, if every other police commission in the state of Connecticut doesn't need a budget, why do we?
Well, Carl, I'm reminded that probably 4 or 5 years ago now, there was an RFP that resulted in proposals in the vicinity of 40,000 at that time for a structure and staffing study. I envisioned something even broader than that. So
That was done by the Board of Finance, not by the Police Commission.
no, the RFP was developed by the police commission.
The RFP was, the Board of Finance brought that to us and asked us if we would create an RFP and we decided not to. It was not brought by the Police Commission, it was brought by the Board of Finance.
Is that the first go around?
That's the one I was involved.
Okay, no, there was two. There was one prior to me being on the police commission, and then there was another one. So.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may real quick, I wonder if the motion is a little bit too broad, just based on listening to some of the discussion. It sounds like some think that this might be for a consultant. I think you just say that wants to do a study that was a little bit more broad than the one that was proposed years ago. Some might think it's for additional legal counsel or an expansion of the legal line item. And so right now in our budget, we have $7,000 for legal expenditures, and that's for both the commission and the department.
Let me interrupt, if I may. The $7,000, in my understanding, is just for the department. There is no funding for the police commission itself.
Well, it certainly wasn't that way the last couple of years. So the operating budget covered much of the police commission's legal expenditures. So every time that you, sir, reached out to town council and or labor council, that bill came to us, and the department paid for a large majority of that. And so that's why I'm suggesting, I wonder if, like the attorney that the first selectman has allowed you to use now, my question is, who's paying for that? Is he paying for that out of his legal funds, or is the department paying for that out of our operating funds? And so being the one that's responsible for the budget, I'm interested to know where those expenditures are coming from, because as we overexpend that legal line item, obviously other things get compromised or put on the back burner. So I wonder if the motion should be more specific for exactly what you're looking to do with a consultant, because there's many different types of consultants.
It is clear, I think, that it is not for legal fees. And to respond to your question, it is my understanding, based on my discussion with First Selectman Fortuna, that Burka Moses is not coming out of the $7,000 in the police department legal budget.
That would be great. That'd be fantastic. But I do think that there's lots of different types of consultants, and I think for transparency for the community, I think you should identify, what that consultant is for. That's usually why there's an RFP process ahead of time, so everyone can read that on the.
Thank you for your suggestion, Chief. Thank you for your suggestion.
I'm just concerned about the lack of transparency.
I understand. Thank you.
Can I have the motion back again?
Motion to request Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance to work with the commission to fund a budget for the commission up to $50,000 for consultants on police services.
Thank you.
Do you want to specify which budget? But you seem reluctant to do it at their recommendation for the upcoming budget. And so it's kind of vague. So
I'm trying to get it as soon as we can.
you're saying for current.
If we can't get it currently, then we'll have to work towards next year. I understand that. I'm just trying to get a number on the floor so that discussions can go forward.
Right, but if you're asking for a special appropriation, you have to follow the charter language to do that. So the department only can ask for one special appropriation each fiscal year. So I just want to make sure that we're doing this properly.
Chief, please understand that this is not the police department. This is the police commission. It is not your operating budget. It is a police commission request for the commission, not the department.
So the commission is asking for its own separate budget.
Exactly. I've tried to make that clear since this was first introduced.
I'm sorry, could we read the motion again? I apologize.
Sure.
I want to make sure that piece is captured.
Motion to request Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance to work with the commission to fund a budget for the commission up to $50,000 for consultants on police services.
perhaps create a new budget for the police commission. Because that's what you're asking, I mean, that's what you're asking for, is an
I
entire
am
new
happy
budget.
to, I am happy to
Just-
take that as an amendment.
Right, just to be clear.
I think that what we're trying to do here is to establish our intent. And really, and that is really the whole idea of this. We want to move forward to be able to open discussions with the higher levels, to be able to have this concept become practice. So I don't know that we need to fiddle around with the motion as much as we're talking about doing. I just think that the intent is there. These are the beginning stages of it.
I think what you just said would be a perfect motion, quite frankly.
But
Ms. Manning?
I think the motion that we said is we want to open discussion with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to talk about a budget. That's
For
how I,
the, for the
for
commission.
the commission, right, that's how I see it.
If we keep talking about this, we're gonna be at the next budget season.
There you go. So we probably
No,
should just move the
January, we
question.
do, we start, so I mean, I think. You know, we have to do something, if we're asking, it's not like this is gonna be set in stone, if we don't start somewhere, we're never gonna get anywhere.
That's the motivation.
And they
Any
might
other
put us
discussion?
off- They might put us off till next year, but I mean, we have to ask.
If there's no other discussion, now we'll call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Next item, correspondence. I have forwarded the correspondence I've received to the recording clerk. Does anyone else have any correspondence to report? Next item, comments from the public before we go into our workshop.
I have a comment.
Yes,
Okay, first of all, I'd like.
please identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eleanor Laplace. I would like to thank you for appropriating the 50,000. I sincerely, as a taxpayer, I sincerely believe that you do need at least $50,000 to be an independent police commission and have whatever questions you have. There's obviously, you need counseling. There, you know, with all kinds of consultants there. And I'd like to point out that the Parks and Rec had a consultant they paid $100,000 to determine what kind of recreational needs the town had. So I'm just saying that for the police commission or any other town body, they all have consultants and they all hire. So thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments in the live audience? In our virtual audience, do we have anyone raising a hand?
No hands are raised.
Thank you. Chief, it goes back to you to introduce our people for the workshop on the Emergency Communications Division.
Thank you. Does anyone need a 5-minute reprieve before the 30 to 40-minute presentation begins?
Sure. Let's have a 5 to 10 minute recess. What's that?
Is my phone ready to, right, it'll be 911.
Yeah, sure.
Now on the desk, we have to start her off on barracks.
Is that Jim?
No, Jim was this morning.
That's the one I can really remember from you. I feel like I should remember you like 3 times.
Yes.
Awesome.
Make sure that you're.
If I do that, if they only do that call, it's a separate file. Just go. So.
How did you share? Did you share a specific tab or did you share your whole screen? That
Should I try and put in the presentation? File.
So, hold on.
Oh my God, it's melting hot.
So your question was about Captain DePerry's
Yeah,
presentation?
well, just his, or do you want?
No, you should put that there. So if you unshare PowerPoint. Now, do you have the other one opened up? You need
So I
to
just play the audio and go here.
the what?
Yeah, you gotta click the share audio, there's an extra button.
Well, not share audio. I just have to open it up with an app that you can share.
Or do you want to do it? You can just play from your computer.
No, I don't want to do that because I'll lose control of the meeting. So if you, there is no one. Okay.
Right.
It's turning to servers that would ask for lawyers. I didn't ask for.
Without any rules.
Okay, so now just so we go ahead and go share.
Just share that.
Just go ahead and share that. Just make sure the guys come through. Okay, just briefly test it. See if it's okay. Was that?
Are we muted?
I don't see. No, you're not muted. Did you share?
Where are we?
We're trying to figure out the share. Is it?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, you let me know when everyone's ready.
Yeah. Play the audio.
Will do.
Here, the mic will pick it up, right? And we can share my screen.
Larry, can you just set him up as a presenter, please, and then he can share his screen?
He's already set up as a presenter, so he can go ahead and do the PowerPoint presentation.
So he should be able to play the audio.
Share
through
the audio
that.
when you go to share that movie file.
Oh, I.
Little checkbox down the bottom.
There it is. Share sound.
Yep. And so that should work for the public presentation.
Sorry about the speaker. You know, we just.
Last minute.
Just calling to see how babysitter's doing.
Yeah.
How long?
I love that place.
Yeah, I'm out of 44. 49.
Okay. Maybe downstairs, in, you know, like in the hallway.
So his head goes up and around. He gets it. Like, that's why I never moved.
All right, we're back in session. Chief, are you with us still?
I am. I'd just like to confirm with Larry that we're back on public session.
Yes, we are. We never went off.
Well, okay then. All right, for the opening of this, I'd like the commission to hear an audio recording that we've received permission from those on the recording to play, and then I'll introduce tonight's presentation. Dan, if you can go ahead and play the audio, please.
Emergency. 36 Pepperidge Trail. Okay, ma'am, take a deep breath for me. I cannot hear you. My son is having a heart attack or something. Okay, I can't hear you. I'm only hearing every word of the word. I need you to calm down. Take a deep breath for me. Deep breath in. He just had a spark stent put in. Okay. 2 weeks ago, he was working in the yard. Okay. Okay. Take a deep breath. Where are you at? I'm at 36 Pepperidge Trail. 36 Pepperidge Trail? Yes. Okay. And what is the telephone number you're calling me from? 914-434-2084. All right. And what is your name? Donnie's having like a heart attack. Okay. Tell me exactly. My stepdad, Donnie, who is at 36. Ma'am, are you still there? Yes. Okay. All right. Tell me exactly what happened. My stepdad was working in the yard. Okay. Okay. He's having a heart attack. Okay. Is he on the ground? Ma'am, is he awake? My mom's overhead. He's not awake? I don't know. I'm getting back inside. I was getting my neighbor. Okay. I need you to go back outside and look at him for me. I need you to tell me if he's awake right now. Okay? I'm getting inside right now. Okay. I need you to take a deep breath for me. We're going to get through this together, okay? Are you with him? I'm almost there. Okay. Who else is with him right now? My mom's doing CPR. She's doing CPR? Yes, Papa. All right, I need you to get right to him for me, okay? Come on, 911. Ma'am, I need you to listen to me. I need you to get with him, okay? I'm with him with my mom. Does anyone have an AED available? What's that? You don't, all right, that's all right. Are you right by him right now? Yeah, I'm with my mom. Ma'am, I need you to pull together for me. I need you to take a deep breath and listen to me, all right? Is he flat on his back right now? He's on his back. Shake. I've got CPR here. Okay. All right. No. All right. Is he flat on his back? He's on his back. All right. I need you to quit crying and listen to me, okay? We're trying to save his life right now. You hear me? Yeah. All right. Make sure he's flat on his back and place the heel of your hand on his breastbone right between the nipples. Place the heel of your head on his breastbone right now. Right between his nipples, and put the other hand on top of that hand. Other hand on top of that hand. All right. I need you to pump the chest hard and fast and at least twice per second, okay? Come on, up the chest. Upstairs, in the bedroom, upstairs. Are you, ma'am, can you still hear me? Yes. Thank you. Okay, are you doing the chest compressions? He's on his chest compression. All right. No. Is your hands on his chest? 911. Ma'am, I need you to pay attention to me, okay? Come on. Okay. All right. Is someone doing the chest compressions? Yes, my neighbor is now. Okay. I need you to count out loud with me, okay? Okay. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep pumping hard and fast. You hear me? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I need you to slow it down a little bit. Okay. Hear my count. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Ma'am, listen to my count. Okay. 3, 4.
3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1,
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is he breathing? No, I need you to lay him flat. I need you. He's getting color back. Is he breathing?
It's not there now, little.
He's breathing.
Getting better.
Okay.
The blueness going out of his
The
face.
blueness is leaving his face.
A little.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, he's got color in his face.
Okay. Can he?
Trying to breathe.
Okay, so he's breathing.
John, he's trying to get air.
Okay. Can you see him breathing? Ma'am, can you see him breathing? There's a difference between breathing and gasping. What does it look like he's doing?
More gas. More gasping, but he's
Gasping.
got color back in his
Okay.
face.
So I need you to still keep pumping for me, okay?
I will
Keep pumping until he's literally telling you to stop, okay?
Got it.
Are they coming?
Are you on
Yes,
your
ma'am.
way?
They've got people coming as fast as they can, okay? We're going to hang on until we get there, okay?
Sweetheart, this is what I need you to do. Put the phone down next to me. All right, I want you to go out in the driveway and run to the top of the hill.
I need
Because that's
to stay with whoever's with the patient.
Not going to know which house this is.
Okay. Is there a driveway? What do they need to look for?
They need to look, I just sent his daughter
Okay.
outside.
Someone's going through the road and sliding down.
Driveway.
Okay. Okay.
Shared driveway with 3.
Okay, I've got an officer out there. Do you see him?
All right.
Okay, somebody needs, who's with the patient right now?
Wife and neighbor.
Okay, is someone still pumping on the chest?
All right, just don't. Excuse me?
Is someone still doing chest compressions?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I
perfect.
have not stopped.
Okay, perfect. You're doing a fantastic job, okay?
Is he coming?
All right. Can you count your pumps for me?
Here he comes. They're coming in the house now.
They are. Let me know when someone takes over. Do not stop until someone takes over, okay?
Was he eating anything?
I do not know. Sweetheart, he's going to
And he
has
recently been put in, but he was doing a lot better about a month.
Ma'am, is that an officer with you?
Now the guard too much.
I don't know. Did you start this as soon as it happened?
When he fell down, I saw him downstairs. He kept all the ambulance. I came upstairs.
I will tell you, he's colors. He was right. Hey, how you doing?
Ma'am, is that an officer with you?
Sure. What? Oh, sorry. We got
You one pad, place one pad on bare at chest.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure this evening to introduce to you Old Saybrook's first responders, our dedicated public safety dispatchers. Let me mention those who are not present this evening first. Dispatcher James Shake was unable to make it. Dispatcher Leah Offner and per diem public safety dispatcher Bobby Barrett are currently answering those calls for help at the police department and were unable to be in attendance. In attendance with you this evening is dispatcher Jennifer Franklin, public safety dispatcher Andrea Goslin, who is also our record supervisor, dispatcher Charles Moriarty, Dan Fox, Dan Adams, who are dispatching supervisor and the star of that phenomenal recording and proof of how dispatchers save lives, and that was a live save, dispatcher Caitlin Murray. Also in attendance is Director Phil Coco, who's in charge of our quality assurance and quality control. And the presentation this evening is going to be led off by Dan Adams, our dispatch supervisor. Dan, go ahead and take it away.
Welcome everyone. We've met you come to the windows here and there. So once again, we have Phil, Charlie, Dan, Jen, Caitlin, and Andrea with us tonight. With our names. So we like to say we're the link for those who need help and those who provide help. So if you want a police officer, you have to call us. You need a fireman or EMS, you have to call 911. And then we provide the link. We're the only 24/7 phone call in the town. So if it's Christmas Day, you have an emergency, you need to call us, or anything like that during a snowstorm. Plows to get the roads done for the ambulance to come through, you call us. Well, we're open 24/7. Here's a look at our dispatch center. We have 3 identical consoles. They're all set up like this. So you can see there's 9 computer monitors and we have a TV hanging above. So there's 3 identical and there's always 2 dispatchers working 24 hours a day, 365. Some basic, what everyone thinks of our tasks and responsibilities. We obviously answer 911 phone calls and 911 text messages. The routine 10-digit line we answer. When members of the public come into the lobby, we assist them in whatever they need. We dispatch the police, fire, EMS, and emergency management. And then in October 2019, we took on additional tasks of the records division, which Andre will get into later, more stuff with that. These are some additional responsibilities.
So yeah, these are some more like the advanced tasks and responsibilities that the public may not think that we're end up doing. There's the monitor prisoners. We have the live PD cameras that are in front of our dispatch consoles, or we could see it in front of the vehicles, and we see like when an officer is conducting a traffic stop, we can make sure that they're safe. We have the monitor alarms at the youth and family in town hall. We monitor the status of the radio towers. We monitor the hotline, and we've monitored 2 different hotlines for BOLOs from other agencies. Be on the lookout. We monitor radio channel 4618, which is essentially other agencies, Valley Shore Communications, which is in Westbrook, when they dispatch any sort of help that's needed from our department. We monitor Marine 16 for the marine emergencies. We have the Everbridge system that we use to make sure that we send out messages to the town of Old Saybrook regarding like the snowstorms or anything that need broadcasting to the entire town. We have the daily video system tests, which we conduct for the town hall, which we're in, Park and Rec, as well as the Old Saybrook schools, so Goodwin, the middle school and the high school, as well as the daily testing of the Old Saybrook Fire and EMS team.
We also receive all pistol permit applications. So whenever you drop off a pistol permit, we take the initial permit and then it goes through Captain DePerry and then gets assigned to an officer. We complete criminal database background checks for arrest warrants, investigations for officers, pistol permits, solicitors. So what that is, we don't actually do it, but we run the database query to see if anyone has any criminal history, and then we pass that along to the officers. We also maintain and keep all hard copy arrest warrants in our file. So if another agency pulls over someone, they have a warrant from us, they call us and we confirm that we actually have the paper in front of us of that warrant, so it's valid. We have all protective orders, same thing. We keep a log of burn permits. So when people get their fire pit permits from the fire marshal, we have a log of that as well. And they're supposed to call us before they start burning. So if there's ever an issue and the fire danger is too high or so forth, we can say, hey, you can't burn today. We assist Jen with the golf cart program and all the registrations. We have a listing of all the hazardous materials in town, daily press release that gets released, solicitor permits, and then anything and everything else we can do to support whatever is assigned to us.
So these are the dispatcher tasks and responsibilities for emergency management. We staff the Emergency Operations Center with a dispatch representative. This is during any hurricanes, any snowstorms, any emergency management response. We update information to the state of Connecticut web EOC system. We are able to reverse 911 calls with important community information. That's through that Everbridge system. We assist with setup, breakdown, staffing of any recovery center or sheltering activities. I don't know if some of you have wells and you have to use the high school for showers if there's storms and no power. And we communicate with the utility companies, Eversource, Frontier, Comcast, and we assist with various COVID events. When we had the COVID clinic at the middle school, we assisted with that.
You don't mind questions as we go along, do you?
Oh, go ahead.
Where is the Emergency Operations Center? Is that not in the dispatch center?
We actually do that usually in the training room. Because we're able to set up extra computers and extra monitors and everything that we need.
Right, so you're always on site.
Yes, yep.
So we have a comprehensive dispatch training program. There's 2 CTOs right now. It's myself and Andrea, the 2 trainers. Dan Fox is our most recent trainee we've had to go through. So it takes a lot of work to get someone trained. Not everyone makes it through. It's a tough job. So there's certification classes that are usually off-site, but with COVID, they've been more virtual. Go to the police academy, state police headquarters, the 911 training center. And there's 3 different classes with the National Academy of International Dispatch and Emergency Dispatch. Certifications that are required. We have State of Connecticut telecommunicator class, AT&T 911 Collect, which is a criminal database certification, and our 3 EMD, EPD, and EFD certifications.
What is Collect certification?
So when I talked about the criminal database query, that's the certification for us to be allowed to do that. That's the program it's called. And then Dan, if you want to go on about how training was or any stuff for you or.
Yeah, so it was a lot. For me, it was different because it was online for me. I was hired through COVID. EMD, EPD, and EFD were all pretty extensive. You had to take a test after every single one. He trained me while I was in those classes. I would sit in on shifts with him and he would teach me how to dispatch calls. And the DOR report that you see up on the screen is how I would be graded basically after every shift with him. And it was, based on how I took a call, dispatched a call, how I handled a difficult call, it would get put on the DOR there.
My vague understanding is that there's a kind of a protocol that you're interacting with the computer as.
So that would
calls are
be
coming in.
EPD, EFD, and EMD. Those are all protocols. Whenever a call is generated, there's a set of codes that you have to remember. You type in the code, it'll prompt questions, and you ask the question on the screen and just answer as you go.
How much of a typist do you have to be?
You have to be able to type pretty quick in order to keep up with some people, especially when they're frantic.
Especially when they're frantic like that.
Yeah, so it's very difficult to get information out of people when they're obviously upset about what.
I was having a tough time even understanding what she was saying.
Yeah.
I hope your acoustics are better there.
Yes, sir.
Good.
So on there, that's called a daily observation report. The police officers do something very similar on there, and we do it for training as well. So there's 29, 30 categories on there, and we grade them throughout the shift and how they perform it. It helps us identify trends and areas for improvement. And then another thing we also have is a trainee task list. So this is just one page, what it looks like, but it's a 10-page document with hundreds of tasks that they have to show they're proficient, and then the CTO signs off, and then the trainee signs off, and then we all sign off saying, hey, they're competent in those specific tasks and what they need to know for tasks.
You're the CTO.
Myself and Andrea are the 2 right now. Yeah. Any more questions so far? So now, how do we process a call? This is kind of what we want to know. So you'll see here, we want to know where they are and who's calling and what it's about. So the first thing we ask is your location, the phone number, the callback phone number, and then who's calling, and then what happened.
Does the phone number not come up automatically?
It does, but you have to verify it to make sure it's correct. There are times where it's wrong, so you always have to verify it. So we get the location, the phone number they're calling from, and hey, what's going on there? And then once we select that, I just have some screenshots of what it looks like for those questions you asked. So say we had a disturbance going on. Our code that we have to know is 113 for disturbance. And these are questions, so not to get into the minutia of this, but there's the color coding of the blue means something to us. So we'd select what they're calling for and then continue going through these questions. As we answer these questions in the computer, it'll eventually give us a response. Weapons are, and all the 90% of the police calls, weapons is always a question for officer safety involved. So we want to know if there's any weapons seen or heard or mentioned or thought of, so we could relate to the officers responding for officer safety. And it just keeps getting in more detail, how many people are involved, physical or verbal. And then once it gets to a point, it sends this code, it codes it out as a 113 Delta 2, and then that sends it to the CAD for a response, which comes up in a later thing. And then you keep asking questions. Where's the suspect now? You select wherever they are, and you type in any additional information that would be needed.
At what point is the car dispatched?
So you'll see here, the screen of what looks like pops up was coming up. I have a screenshot of, but this code right here, when we hit send, it sends that code to the CAD system, and then it'll pop up for the other dispatcher what officers to dispatch or fire or ambulance. It's based off that code.
So it says 3:43. Does that mean it took 3 minutes and 43 seconds on the phone or no?
These are all screenshots I took. I did
Okay,
before,
okay,
but
no,
that's
yeah.
how long the call's been active. And
Okay.
going through questions. This
I
was not a
wasn't
this was not a
judging. That
real.
came out judgy.
It was. This isn't a real call.
Only asked judgy.
So just a point, you just asked about, when is someone sent?
Yeah.
And the point that's, the response is dispatched is totally dependent on the answers to questions and the acuity. So as an example, in the case that Caitlin had, that you were listening to, as soon as you have the location and the fact that somebody's unconscious or not breathing, it's dead. In a law enforcement situation, you have somebody with a gun, right? Or God forbid, a school incident, right? It's immediate. As soon as you have the location and nature, it's going to tell you, and the system tells you, right, send now. If it's something minor, right, where we're trying to determine how much medical support is needed, is a paramedic required? We need a little bit more information. The system is dynamic and it grabs information and continues to ask questions until it knows what acuity level and what appropriate response is required, and then it will tell you. So the dispatch or the alerting of units happens at different points based on the information that's coming in and the acuity of it. They're all ranked. And there are 7,243 combinations, believe it or not.
7,343.
Different response combinations, possible combinations.
And how many codes do you have to know?
The system knows. So as the dispatchers are asking questions and getting answers, it configures the code. They'll configure that code.
But it's easier to know if you have like 113 remembered as disturbance.
Right.
So you're not scrambling to find the right
Right.
word.
So I know I'm sitting on top of this, but my vision is not great. So it pops up and then, like you just said a number, would it automatically have a list of numbers and you select them? Or do you have to know to type it in?
You have to know to type it in.
Okay.
It
And
makes
then
it a lot easier.
in that call, I never once heard you call somebody. So how did it know to do that?
So I'm not sure if you can hear in the background or not, but my partner was behind me dispatching. As soon as
Oh,
he
okay.
knew that I was on the phone with someone who was not conscious, he was already sending help.
Okay, I didn't know if you hit a button and it knew to do that. And
So
Yeah, so
the button doesn't send out somebody
So the button is what recommends who's going.
Okay.
So it'll pop up with a screen like 27 and 8, and paramedic and an EMS unit need to go. But my partner has already voice dispatched because we pretty much know who needs to go.
And this is why you have two on duty.
Exactly. That's the advantage of that. One can stay on the phone with the caller and keep that continuity of care, which in the case you heard earlier, that intervention, led to the patient's survival, right? So nothing happening in those few minutes between the time we send somebody and they arrive. The dispatcher doesn't provide them some mechanism of what to do and what not to do for the patient. In some of those cases, it's life or death, and that happened to be one they heard there. So the advantage of having that second person is one person they both can listen, and then once enough information is known and it's time to send, one can drop off, manage the units, provide more information, and handle the the response of the units, while the other one stays on the phone with that caller to provide that continuity of care, which,
Yeah.
Is this pretty much a post-ordained approach? Police officer standards and training council, or Is that not?
So the dispatch protocols that we use are developed by an international group. They're used internationally. And the idea is that, you know, if you dial 911 anywhere, you should be asked the same questions in the same order and get the same response, right? The idea is that each situation is unique, but each requires a certain level of response, right? How many, what skill level, and how soon they're sent, right? Those are kind of the dynamics of that. And that, and my primary role, which there was a point to talk about, we can talk about it now, is to make sure that they're doing it the right way, right? There's a whole CAN program. The protocols are developed by the International Academy of Emergency Dispatch, which is basically a research organization that oversees all these protocols. And they do research and they release updates constantly. And it's our job to make sure that questions are being asked in the right way. Just asking the question as a leading question can get you the wrong answer. You had asked about verifying the phone number. That's important because sometimes the person is not calling from the location where the patient is. So how they ask the first question, what's the address of the emergency, as opposed to where are you? Where are you may not get you the right, we may send somebody to the wrong place. Because if your son or daughter was calling for you, right? So somebody calls mom or dad, checks in with them, oh, they're having chest pain. Click, I'm calling 911 and I'm heading over there. So they get the phone number and the location. That is not where the patient is. So problem. So each question, I mean, it's really a delicate art and it has to be done very, very precisely. And so we do, retrospective review of calls to make sure that everyone is absolutely compliant. And there's a software program for that as well, where we make sure everybody is compliant, every aspect of what they're doing. And when they're not, they get remediation, But the instructions given to callers are very, very important. How the questions are asked, very, very important. And you can see the result for yourself, And the other idea behind this is that whether you call it 3 in the morning and Charlie's on, or you call it 2 in the afternoon and Jim Shake is on, or you call at noon and Andrea is on, whoever you get, you're going to be asked the same questions, which are going to yield the answers, right? And that those answers will yield the same response every single time. So that there's continuity, reduction, risk and liability, and everything is done exactly the way it's supposed to be done every single time. It puts a standard on it, and that's what we shoot to achieve.
Can I just ask, what's the process like? Let's say you get 2 calls, like the same that we just heard. What happens then? So you get one, and then where does the other one get directed to?
So multiple calls for the same incident, or multiple different
at the same
incidents?
time.
Different incidents.
Yeah.
So there's 2 folks. So the most important thing is to answer the 911 calls, right? And then if they need to dispatch their own if they have to. Staying on the line with the caller and doing what Caitlin did there. I mean, heroic. That's not the day-to-day, right? There's a pretty small percentage of calls that requires that. And you saw how lengthy that was to do that case. Generally, cases last 3 minutes. They're on the phone 2 to 3 minutes. And if they have to stop in the middle of that to send their own resources, right? So it's time to send the resources, but I have some more questions for you. Please hold on the line while I get help sent out to you. Don't hang up. And they'll, put them on hold for a second, get those units rolling, but they can still, the technology allows them to still hear if anything's happening on the phone. They'll get the units rolling and then get back to the call.
We can talk on the radio without.
That was actually what I was wondering.
Without
They
the
put
caller
on
even-
hold and then go, or?
The technology, you can do both at the same time.
Very cool.
And of course, the system will help you prioritize, right? So if you got somebody reporting that their mailbox was damaged and you have 2 other callers reporting higher priority cases, they know how to.
That's where the numbers.
I'll get back to you.
You're gonna wait.
I get it.
Hang in there with me. I've got to save 2 lives first. And I've got to put out a fire.
Yeah.
So hold on, we'll get to your mailbox in a second.
That's great.
But so there's prioritization to all of these things. What they do, when they do it, how they do it, and get the right folks to the idea is to get the folks rolling, get the right number of folks, the right skill sets to the patient, to the fire, to the law enforcement incident, in the right amount of time and to do whatever is possible to help in the meantime.
And on the other end of that, whether it be police, fire, or EMS, once they hit send, we see all the answers to those questions in whatever vehicle we're in. If it's the fire truck, we see the answers to those questions. If it's the ambulance, we see the answers. And in the police car, especially the weapons question, we see the answer to those questions. So it's very helpful.
So, Mr. Chairman, you had asked if this is a post derivative. So think of the dispatch center, the emergency communication center, almost as a completely separate and distinct agency. So in some post model policy, there are requirements for what the dispatching unit, whether that be centralized in the police department or a third party or with another community, what they have to do. But what our dispatchers are presenting to you tonight is a standalone mission for the town of Old Saybrook. So Dan started off by explaining that they're the link. They're the only ones that connect someone who needs help with someone who can provide help. And that's not only the citizen, that's the public safety professional. So if a cop needs backup, they call the dispatcher. If a firefighter's in trouble and they call a mayday from inside a structure fire that they need to be rescued from themselves, they call the dispatcher. If an ambulance is on scene and they need additional resources, they need a paramedic, a quasi doctor in the field, they call the dispatch center. So definitely a true link. What the captain just mentioned about seeing stuff in the mobile units, Dan, if you can go back like 3 or 4 slides, I just want to show the statements. One more, there you go. So on the bottom of your screen there, those are questions that were asked by the dispatcher and then answers typed in, and the software converts the question and the caller's answer into a statement for field personnel. So as you're responding to the call, like the captain just said, you're seeing in real time the answers that are being given by the caller to the dispatcher, but changed into action statement form. So you're constantly being briefed and updated as you're responding to the call.
You'll notice they're color coded. The red has to do with safety. So you'll notice it says no known weapons were involved. That, you know, your eyes just sort of go to that right away. Anything red is about your personal safety as the responder.
And so state statute requires us to have an emergency medical dispatching program, but there is no such requirement for police or fire dispatching. This is a choice that we made as an agency, that we made on behalf of the town of Old Saybrook to, as Director Coco pointed out, make sure that we're standardizing not only the dispatching services, but the resources that are allocated. So no matter when you call, what you're calling for gets the same amount of attention, and the professionalism at the end of the phone isn't dictated by who is answering the phone. It's dictated by a very complex, comprehensive software program. Vice Chairman Chippy, you had asked, do you have to remember all the different codes? They do not have to know 7,000 codes. The main codes, that 113, the dispatchers have memorized over time just because of familiarity. The main category, if you will, of the type of code, and then that letter and the dash and the other number, those are all derivatives that mean something inside our computer-aided dispatching software, the CAD, C-A-D, computer-aided dispatching, and that's what decides who goes to what call. So in the case of the call that Caitlin demonstrated for us at the beginning of the presentation, that would be the closest unit. So it doesn't matter if you're in that patrol area or not, the closest unit to that call by GPS routing. So that CAD system is constantly polling our cars. Where are you in town? Where are you in town? Now this very acute emergency has come in, whether it's police, fire, or EMS related, it will take and find the closest call and recommend that unit to the dispatcher to be dispatched. So very, very comprehensive unit. A lot of time and effort went into choosing this software, and certainly the training that Andre and Dan provide, and the quality assurance and quality control that Director Coco does on a weekly basis for us.
I'll just go through more screens, ask for description, so that would pop up in the officers once we input it, and we verbally tell them over the radio as well. And then just more questions, any alcohol involvement, anyone in danger, that's question in red, so we have to ask those. And then these are post-dispatch instructions, they're called. So we have to provide these based on the call. We decide, it's not a civil matter, so we wouldn't say F or it's not a court order type thing. So we pick what's appropriate in those letters and it pops up. And then anything more urgent is on the right-hand side. So we could stay on the line with him and give us further instructions. We could just disconnect if there's a caller in danger, or we need to control bleeding or burn treatment. Those are all options that we could provide further instructions for. So we decide based on what's going on to routine disconnect, stay on the line, and so forth that way. And these are routine disconnect instructions we provide if we select that. We don't have to say all these, but we say what's appropriate for the scenario. But we always have to say calls if any changes or any further information.
There's also a special, back to your question about multiple things happening at once. There is also an urgent disconnect protocol where we give a short burst of instructions because we have to hang up and get on to the next call. And that happens a lot with multiple calls coming in from the same incident. Obviously, when there's something big in public, everybody grabs their cell phone. So
Right, yeah.
all the lines are lit up and everyone's reporting the same thing. So there's a routine
Like an
disconnect, an urgent disconnect when you really have to get off the line. But you don't want to leave them in the lurch. You want to give them some quick group of instructions really quick, what to do, not to do in the meantime. And then as in the case that you heard earlier, there are what are called pre-arrival instructions where we're staying on the call, on the line with the caller and providing them very specific instructions to deal with what they're dealing with, whether it's a cardiac arrest, whether it's a choking or a seizure or someone with a gun, someone that's threatening you and you're in danger, whether your house is on fire or there's a electrical line down the street, providing for the safety of everybody there, gathering information, providing for the responders so they're safe going in, how to approach. So we do all of that. And everything's just dependent on every situation is unique. And that's why there's all those different combinations of things.
And just so everyone knows, we have a caller in danger protocol. Dan, I don't know if you have a slide for that, but imagine the sad stories that you hear about domestic violence victims that are calling 911, but they can't speak because if they do, they'll be put in harm's way, or certainly calls from a school reporting an active shooter. There's a whole separate protocol that if a caller cannot speak, the dispatcher goes through a protocol and explains that they can tap on the phone or change their pattern of breathing to answer a question to determine how close the assailant is to them, and directions, as Director Coco said, on how to get to a safer location until help arrives. And we actually train all of our town employees on this as well through their use of panic buttons. So no matter what municipal facility you're at, there's some panic buttons there. If they have to use a panic button and then they get called by the police department, but they can't talk because someone is dangerous in front of them, we work through the caller in danger protocol. So again, very, very comprehensive system.
And then this is when the CAD tells us who to dispatch based on that 113 Delta 2 code, if it's a closest officer, area car, or so forth. It recommends us on the bottom. It says, hey, these are the 2 officers you should dispatch. And this call called for a patrol officer and a supervisor. So that's who we dispatched. And while you're on the phone, your partner this screen will pop up for them as well. They could dispatch off that.
So again, just making sure that this is all being done the way it's supposed to be done and that we're compliant with everything that the program offers us. We want to have a repeatable standard. Again, as I said, no matter who's on the phone, no matter what time you call, you're going to be asked the same questions in the same order. We're going to get the same code, which drives the same response, so that we're not just leaving it up to individual discretion. It's all pre-programmed. It's all standardized and absolutely repeatable. We want the same repeatable standard always. The systems are designed to, prioritize the safety of the bystanders and the people calling, as well as the people that we're sending. Right? We're trying to equip them with the knowledge of what they're headed into, so that they can be prepared for that, whatever that means for them. So it does prioritize bystander and responder safety. That's an important part for us. It's important that the folks that we are dispatching to incidents have confidence in the information that they're being given. And this system is designed to get that information in a very distinct and quick way, so that we have accurate information and we're relaying that, and that essentially, when they arrive on scene, what they have to deal with is exactly what they were told they were headed into.
Which leads to the question, what's the feedback loop from the person dispatched back to the dispatcher as to how smoothly that interface went? Is there a routine for the postmortem?
There is absolutely an ability for responders to be able to say, hey, when I got there, you told me it was this and it was really that, so we can look into, what caused that. That is not the norm by any stretch of the imagination. The flip side of that is, the QA process where we're doing this retrospective review, which includes a review of the record of what the officers wrote in their reports, in addition to listening to the call, listening to the dispatch, and making sure. And we have actual software that, yep, they asked that, they documented that correctly. Nope, they didn't document that correctly. You got the right code, you got the wrong code, and then there's feedback back for any problems correctly. And of course, we're all looking to reduce the liability in this, right? Dispatch is a place where if you don't do it right,
You have big consequences.
you can have big consequences are large. There are also some advantages. So, one of the other advantages to all of this is better resource utilization. So we have ambulances, we have paramedics, we have fire trucks, we have ladder trucks, we have all different kinds of fire trucks. And we have, police assets that are in different places in the town. And so assembling the complement of response for each incident, whether it involves fire, police, EMS, all of those together or not, the system can help you refine the responses. So do we need the whole fire department, or do we need one engine? Do we need an ambulance and a paramedic, or just an ambulance? So one of the things that we do that the hospital medical director, who has oversight over all of this, has allowed Old Saybrook to do, because we have this QA process and because this group of dispatchers happens to operate at a very, very, very high level of compliance, is a fall victim with no injuries. So in any other community, someone falls down, we're convinced they have no injuries based on the answers to the questions. That would get, first responder, generally fire department, and an ambulance. Here it gets 2 police officers who are already on duty. So we're not tying up an ambulance. They go and they provide that level of care. They assist the patient, they evaluate to make sure there aren't any injuries. If there are, they can call for an ambulance. That never happens. So the process of asking the questions and the dispatchers assuring themselves through that process that there are no injuries and someone just needs assistance back to the chair or back to bed, we have, that's handled by the police officers. Another example is someone who's obviously passed away. So traditionally, that's a fire truck, an ambulance, a paramedic. In any other town, there's, just a giant response to that. When the dispatchers have gone through the process and satisfied themselves that the patient, if there is no ability to resuscitate this patient, they have passed away, it's just 2 police officers. The ambulance stays in service, the paramedic stays in service. There's not a big to-do at the house to upset people. So those are some modifications that only are actually happening in Old Saybrook as a result of those 2 things, are having the protocol, our adherence to the protocol, and this group of dispatchers exceptionally high level of compliance in using this protocol. If those numbers fall down, we're going to have to give that up and go back to the safer. And we have monitored that. We've had those 2 protocol changes in place for 11 years now with. So we're pretty proud of that. And it allows us to modify responses and be more efficient in our use of response.
Is it unusual for a town of our size to have this level of proficiency in the dispatch function?
In Connecticut, yes. In the country, not necessarily. It's an international program. Not everyone uses the QA part of it. Not everybody really does the retrospective reviews like we do, which is allowing us to measure their compliance with the system. The system will work if you're compliant with it. So we have to measure that and prove our compliance and satisfy that they're doing it correctly.
this is a dumb question, but as a piano player, if I make a mistake, I have to go back many measures to get back where I was. When you guys make a mistake in coding something, how soon do you know and how quickly can you get back? Or is that something that just doesn't happen?
So in these questions here on the screen, we could click back, the back arrow. If we keyed it wrong or heard it wrong, correct it, we could key back and then correct the answer, and it'll update the response and the questions going forward.
So is that, it's just backspace, backspace until you get there?
Yep, arrows, yep, and you click through.
So it's not, yeah, and it's not usually sometimes there's an error in that, somebody fat fingers something or goes a little too quick and they have to go back and modify. Somebody said yes, I heard yes, but it was really no, they go back and change that. The other thing that happens in a lot of cases is, they're dynamic and the situation changes, right? So at one point you think somebody's not breathing and then all of a sudden they are breathing. So you have to change you have to be fluid, right? You have to adapt to that, or vice versa. Gee, it didn't look so bad. Now it looks a lot worse. Okay, well, got to step things up here. And so knowing how to use the software and being compliant with everything drives the whole thing. And you get the kind of positive impacts that you heard earlier with Caitlin's case, which is what it's really all about, right? Letting somebody see another day that they otherwise might not have. So, yeah, this just talks about the current versions. We do, as the chief mentioned earlier, we are required to have some sort of a system. The state doesn't require quality assurance. It does require us to follow some sort of a system for medical calls. And we started that in 2011 and then quickly realized there's value in this on the fire department side. It took a little while to get the fire department to understand and get them on board, but once they saw it, they came on board, and obviously the police protocols. So we have, sort of 3 separate systems running the whole thing. So these are just the different components of any given case. So to you, it sounds like one phone call, but really these are the different subsets of any interaction with a caller. There's the upfront case entry part of the protocol, which is where are you? What do you have? Right. So those are the 2 most important things, because as you know, with technology, you can get disconnected at any time. So if I know where you are and I have a number that I can call you back at, I can send somebody. I may not even know what it is, but I can at least send somebody to check it out. Right. So we hope that doesn't happen, but we start with those kinds of pieces of information. And we try to determine right up front if it's what we call a time life priority case, which is somebody's life is in imminent danger, right? The case that Caitlin had was a time life priority case, and that gets an immediate dispatch, right? It's the ones that the system says, okay, good enough, right? Not breathing, okay, good enough. I know what I need. Send. And so we'll start that. We'll get an immediate alert out of that and start instructions, which is what you heard there, where she got right into providing some pretty specific instructions on what to do and what not to do to help save that life. Then we figure out the chief complaint. They select that. So as an example, if somebody is having chest pain, there are specific questions around that help us figure out the acuity level and what needs to go. So this is all designed to help figure out what the response is. It's also in that phase, we're trying to figure out if there's any hazards, right? So down wires, drugs on the scene, a gun, a weapon of any kind, those kinds of things. So the key questions kind of refine things, then it comes up with the final code. If we haven't sent already, this is the point where our response is configured and sent. And the responses, again, are based on acuity, locations of units, and what's needed. And the system decides that. I mean, we teach it we tell it what we want it to send, and then it sends it, right? Response, determine assignment, everybody sent, and then we provide either what are called pre-arrival instructions. Pre-arrival instructions, we're staying on the line with the call. Case in point, the case you heard earlier, and we're going to give specific instructions all the way through until somebody else, professional rescuer, is there, or professional law enforcement person is there, or firefighter is there, and we can relinquish that. Or post-dispatch instructions, where we're going to hang up, but we're going to give you a little sequence of things to do and not to do. Don't allow the patient to have anything to eat or drink. they fall, don't let them move, keep them in the position that they're in, keep them comfortable, and call us back immediately if anything changes before help arrives. So those are sort of the phases of a call, and each one of those, back to my crucifixion, each one of those aspects of the call they get graded on. So each call has like 7 different scores. It's a lot of fun. Right? But so it's that level of detail that we go to make sure that we're compliant. And that's what keeps us doing the same thing for every caller, no matter when they call, no matter who they get. We have a repeatable standard. It's safe, it's professional, and it saves lives.
And the question then is, do you sleep well at night?
Well, not all of us, Mr. Chairman, because as you can imagine, this is just one of my responsibilities, right? To make sure that the dispatch function is working correctly, to make sure that the fire chief is happy with the service that the dispatch center is providing his agency and his members. Same for the EMS chief. You heard Phil talk about the Middlesex Hospital medical director. We want to make sure that he's pleased with how we're administering that first aid that is delivered through the emergency medical dispatching program. The first selectman's office, the public works director, myself as the police chief, hearing from my sergeants on how the dispatchers are doing with their role. So very key, important part of the public safety system here in Old Saybrook.
We are appreciating that.
One more section. So we took over records in 2019. So I'm gonna let Andrea take over this. It's additional responsibility we got.
So during our normal dispatch duties, we also take care of the records department and some of the stuff we do in records. We prepare paperwork for the court and other state agencies. The Centralized Infractions Bureau, sending tickets to them, DCF, state police, DMV, DEP, there's many more. That's just a few. We file all the cases electronically and hard copy filing. Some stuff's electronically filed with the new the CAD system that we have now, but some stuff we still keep hard copies for. Completing the monthly NIBRS reports. It's the National Incident-Based Reporting System that gets sent to the FBI and the Department of Justice, and they basically study that for crime data. And then we update court dispositions. So say somebody gets arrested, they're found guilty, not guilty, it's dismissed, nollied, all of that gets updated in the system so that we know what to do with those cases. So if your case gets dismissed, it doesn't exist anymore. So we can't hand that out to someone. And then we respond to any and all records requests, records related questions from the public. We continuously keep up with and be knowledgeable of all record retention laws. We have to keep incidents, and any piece of paper has a specific rule and regulation on how long we have to keep that certain thing for. So everything is different. There's 2 years, 3 years, indefinitely, forever. Everything has a different timeline of how long we have to keep something. So we have to know the laws about all of that. And then we keep track of all office supplies for the department. If we're getting low on pens or anything, we have to let them know that we need to order that. And then we do all the records requests and background check requests when they come in. And this is just a little table here on how many records requests and background checks we get. In 2019, we had 768. 2020, we had 739. 2021, 697. And then so far, we've had 356. I look at screens all day, so that's cool.
You got it. Nailed it.
Yeah.
Now, you're doing this while you're on duty as a dispatcher?
Yes.
So how do you, the records room is over here on the right.
Right.
Dispatch is over here.
So a
on the
lot of
left.
stuff we take the paperwork into dispatch, and I'm sitting at my desk. I have 2 minutes in between the call. I look at it and I get paperwork done in between the call.
Okay.
When we get a call, I put it to the side and take care of the call and.
Right. So
take it
basically,
over.
you're functioning in dispatch.
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you remember in past budget presentations, this was an efficiency that we added by merging two divisions, the records division and the emergency communications division, which is still saving us about $10,000 annually in our budget. And so there is a 9th full-time dispatcher position that is not filled yet, that we will be filling very shortly. As I'm sure you have noticed, we have one of our dispatchers that will be taking a brief reprieve for very awesome reasons in the next couple of months. So we certainly have to backfill her position while she's out on maternity leave. But that 9th dispatcher position is actually a full-time records position, but that person also backfills shift vacancies. So if someone calls in sick or is on vacation, I can pull that employee from that record shift and assign them to the days, evenings, or midnight shift at no additional cost to the town. So it's just it's a great overall efficiency.
Great.
Do we get a lot of people that apply to be dispatchers? I know like on the patrolman side, it's a little more difficult, but you know, do you get a lot of applications for dispatchers? And I know Dispatcher Adams had said sometimes people don't make it through the training.
Yeah, so the answer to that is no. Dispatching has changed so much throughout the years. It is its own profession. So dispatching way back when maybe was seen as a stepping stone to becoming a police officer or becoming a full-time career firefighter if it's a fire dispatch center. That is not the case anymore. This is a true, separate, distinct profession. A police officer, a firefighter, or a paramedic cannot simply walk in a dispatch center, answer the phone, and dispatch. It is a very difficult job. Dan had showed you before all the different national and state certifications that are required just to be in that position. And I think the average member of the public underestimates what needs to be done. So we have had some very tenured public safety professionals that spent careers in the field not able to dispatch. Dispatching is a multitasking adventure every single moment of every single day. Whereas a field unit, while they may multitask, they're doing it for a single issue. So I'm a paramedic, I'm doing a lot of things, but I'm working on one patient. I'm a firefighter doing a lot of things, I'm at one call. A police officer doing a lot of things, dealing with one incident. Whereas a dispatcher is dealing with all three of those calls at the same time.
So do we have anybody in the pipeline for the 9th position, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yes, so we have a current hiring process. There are 4 people that are about to be interviewed in the next week.
Oh, good. And do you guys work the same shifts all the time?
So their shifts are done by the collective bargaining agreement. So they choose their preferences twice a year in accordance with their collective bargaining agreement, and they're assigned by seniority.
But what I'm asking is, do you work like, if you choose midnights, do you work that like for the whole entire year, or does it rotate like then you might go to another shift?
6-month period. You work
Okay.
shift that you've been working. And then if overtime shifts come up, someone calls out sick, whatever, you might work a different shift.
It's just a lot on your body to adjust another time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have an incident that I'd like to just bring up. My kids, I don't know with the iPhone, you know, if you press a button and all of a sudden it's like emergency or XF. And Aiden, he's 5 now, so he must have been 4 at the time. He just, you know, pressed the slide like, I don't know. Anyways, you guys called back like right away, answered the phone. I'm like, hi, did you call 911? I'm like, no, we're gonna send somebody anyways just to check in. And you guys were there within minutes. Didn't even think you knew where my house was. Like it's really great. So thank you. I mean, and then my kid comes out and the officer was like, did you call 911? It's like, no. But anyway, thank you. I appreciate just a call back in general, because you know, a 5-year-old is just gonna hang out and
Yeah, so Jessica, the unique thing about that is that's a local protocol. So there are some communities that simply make that call and then they're done. I require field units to go to confirm that, because you never know if it's a domestic violence victim reaching out for help or someone in medical need that is saying they're okay over the phone, but when we see them face to face, clearly things are not okay. So that is a local policy that we go and physically confirm that it's actually a misconduct.
Can I ask like a silly question, but I'm gonna it's gonna haunt me if I don't ask this question. It's a movie I saw with like Halle Berry, and like somebody called and then she called back like immediately, and that was like the wrong thing to do. Is that something, somebody calls for help and they're like, no, I can't talk, and then hangs up, do you call back right away?
We do, and so I'm not sure what movies you watch, but
No,
again,
I think it's called 911 dispatch.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
talked about, I spoke about the caller in danger protocol. So if someone needs help, and don't forget in the state of Connecticut, and Dan mentioned it in one of his opening slides, that you can actually text 911 and have an entire silent text messaging conversation with the 911
came out
dispatcher.
after the movie. But in the movie, so the dispatcher called back and the ringer gave the person who broke in.
Yeah, again, I don't know about Hollywood. I know what we do every day for real.
Okay, so say, it's in my mind.
So that scenario that you just brought up is actually something that gets the hair on the back of everybody's neck.
Yeah.
It does this kind of work up
Thank you.
because somebody calls, I can't talk or hangs up.
You call back and the ringer gives off.
The idea is that,
Yeah.
the theory that goes through our mind is, somebody's in danger and they dialed 911 and now somebody just confronted them and they had to hang up. So we react to that. I mean, that's a thing to us. You can't let that go. In fact, I think it was Jen, right? Schoolhouse Road case was, right, she responded on a hang up. Right, that was just a hang up.
It was a transfer from 911. It was a hang up 911 call and it mapped luckily to their address.
Yeah.
And Valley Shore transferred it to me and said, all I heard from her is, no, it doesn't have to be like this, and the phone disconnected. So I sent a copy, or I tried to call back, it just went to voicemail, and the police officer went, and it was a husband and wife that were getting divorced the next day, and the husband decided to set the house on fire and was trying to kill him and her. It became a multi-agency response and all sorts of things, but because we called that phone back and luckily had the address and did some legwork. Actually, I was working with the then sergeant to carry that.
And that's an incident.
He said,
that was in the
look up the
middle,
phone number in the house.
that was in the middle of the night, would have gone unnoticed, right? And,
Exactly.
nobody would have seen that. It was in a remote area. So
Yeah. Actually, one of the first officers on scene, I remember after Smitty had said that he drove by when he first drove by the house. He didn't see anything because the fire was on the back of the house and it just looked like a light was on when he drove by the front. He wouldn't even see it.
Yes. I can very much appreciate what the chief is saying, that this job probably has changed over the years. I had absolutely no idea before this presentation what your job entailed. And I have to say that I'm in absolute awe of it, particularly listening to that call, because there's a level of humanity that you have to have in your core that not everybody possesses, and you have to be able to stay calm, yet be compassionate and really keep your wits about you. So my hats are off to you. I am really impressed by this presentation, and I'm very glad that this was brought to us.
Commissioner, thank you for saying that. Again, that's the whole point of these workshop series, because I think you need to be exposed to this. Our dedicated public safety dispatchers, they are the most supervised employees of our agency and also the most independent, right? So when you think about it, they answer operationally to the sergeant. They have medical director oversight. They have Director Coco listening to almost all of their phone calls. They have my supervision, the fire chief, the EMS chief, and then all of the protocols that bound them to do what they do. But yet none of us that supervise them can do what they do. And therefore they must act independently within all the confines of the protocols and the supervisor's workplace expectation to do what they do. Because if they don't do it or they don't do it well, literally people die. And so when we call them the link, we do so with a lot of emotion and a lot of passion, because we could not do what we do in the field without our dedicated public safety dispatchers. And in Old Saybrook, we are very appreciative of who we have on our team. And yes, I would agree with you. They are very special people.
Thank you. It's approaching 9 o'clock. Why don't we go to comments from the chief of police?
Okay, first of all, I want to thank the dispatchers for their presentation. I think they all did a great job. I appreciate them showing up as a team tonight. So we do a lot of team dispatching, as we heard in that first call and as Director Coco spoke about, but having them present to the commission as a team, I think speaks volumes to who they are as a group. So once again, to Dan and to everyone in the room, Director Coco, I want to thank very much for being there tonight and presenting. Mr. Chairman, I'll run down my list that we spoke about very quickly. One, I want to keep on the front burner my idea of that retreat. You had mentioned it earlier after you got some information from the Freedom of Information Commission, but I don't hear a date. I don't know what we want to do. Is there going to be a subcommittee with that? You don't have to answer any of those questions. I just want to make sure that we keep it in the conversation, maybe an agenda item for next month, perhaps, so we can make sure that we move forward on that. The next thing, I do want to talk about our community picnic, our first one of the summer. We chose to do a business appreciation picnic. First, a huge shout out to our OSPD staff who helped put it together on what I believe was probably the hottest day of the summer yet. So setting up tables and chairs on blacktop and grilling, slaving over the grill, Captain DePerry and I think Detective Tabor were one of our main cookers, but thanks to Sergeant Ciccone, certainly Jen D'Amato, Dan Adams was there, Sergeant Hardy, Patrolman DeFrance, and I'm probably missing one or two others, but really, really great time. About 75 to 100 business owners came. They were extremely appreciative about the sentiment to even have the event itself, but more supportive and appreciative of their police department and how safe they feel, how they like partnering with us, and how their businesses do well in the community because of the protection we provide. So lots of business networking went on in the email that I sent you. I mentioned that, but for the public record, lots of networking. In fact, the Chamber of Commerce themselves was there. We had some political officials drop by. Commissioner Von Dossel, as a local business owner, also stopped by, and we appreciate you being there in both capacities as a police commissioner and a small business owner. The bike patrol, one of the chairman's desires to see this summer, has been in full force. And we've decided to ask those that have been participating in that function to the August meeting, and they'll spend 5-10 minutes just briefing the commission on their experience. The chairman has asked that we add monthly an activity report of what the department is actually responding to for types of calls. We used to do that, and in fact, in your budget books, you'll see a printout that we used to hand out to all commissioners at regular commission meetings. It will become part of your packet. So we're working with NextGen right now to make sure that it'll look similar to what commissioners with tenure have received in the past. We're in the very, very final stages of that. So in your August packets, you'll have a formal activity report that you'll understand a little bit more now after listening to the dispatch presentation. It'll categorize calls for service by protocol number and the name of the protocol. It'll also give a report on proactivity as far as proactive motor vehicle enforcement, how many arrests there have been, how many medical emergencies we respond to, fire calls that we've supported, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll give kind of a nice overview. I think it's a 2 or 3 page report that should be very easy to read. But next month, we'll give it to you in your packets, and then I'll explain it to you at the meeting. And that way, if there's any additional information that you're looking for that's not represented, perhaps we can figure that out. I would like to schedule the school resource officers to make a presentation at the September meeting. So they'll be back to school for a couple weeks. It'll be post our normal school back to school event for the police department with our active shooter and active assailant training in all 3 buildings prior to the start of the academic year. So I'd like, if it's okay with the commission, to schedule them for the September meeting for that workshop, and then seek guidance on what you would like for August. So the chairman and I had a conversation about doing some sort of presentation that talks about the difference between an arrest and the disposition of that arrest. He has heard from some people in the community that Old Saybrook police make an arrest and then it gets nollied in court, which must mean it wasn't a good arrest. And I chuckled very heavily at that when he said that, because the adjudication process is completely different than probable cause for an arrest. And there are many programs in Connecticut, accelerated rehabilitation, domestic violence classes, alcohol education classes, that once you choose to enter a program and you satisfy that program, it negates the arrest, which certainly doesn't mean that the arrest was not a good arrest or it should not happen. So part of our job as police officers is to determine if someone has violated the law, make the arrest based on probable cause, and then as that person enters the criminal justice system, the criminal justice system affords them lots of opportunities to rehabilitate. And part of the end result of rehabilitation through a court program is the nollying or the erasure of the arrest. And so I explained to the chairman that I should not make that presentation, but that we should seek out the state's attorney to come and talk about all the diversionary programs that are available. And then we could also shed some light on how many arrests we actually make on arrest warrants, as opposed to on-scene arrests, meaning that some of our arrests are done after a prosecutor has reviewed a case, signed off on an arrest warrant application, it's gone and then presented to a judge, and the judge decides that that person needs to be arrested. After that process, it's quite possible that the person who's arrested participates in a diversionary program, and at the end of the day, their criminal charge is nollied. So we will ask to see if he's available to come in August, but if not, I was wondering if we could start segmenting some of our patrol responsibilities and have some of our patrolmen come in and start talking about some of the things they do. So I'm looking for feedback on that.
I think that makes perfect sense, and I am inferring that you haven't been able to talk with the state's attorney so far?
Not yet, but I want to make sure that that's good for August, and if he can't do it, then we'll go ahead and start featuring some of our patrol functions.
I agree. Let's try for the state's attorney, and if not, let's hear from some patrol.
So we're gonna do the disposition presentation.
In August, if the state's attorney is available.
Okay, great.
Okay, and thank you. That's my comments.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the commissioners? Ms. Manning.
Hi, welcome to all of you. I've seen the last one. I just want to say thank you for everything you do. It is a lot of training and there is a lot of stress. There could be a lot of burnout, although it seems, hopefully you're getting the support that you need, because one of the things that have been asked when a police officer has been, or a prospective police officer has been brought to us is, tell us about a really stressful time and how do you deal with stress. So I hope you all have a way to deal with stress, and thank you. And it's great that you've never had to call 911, because I have. So when I call, thank you again in advance.
Renee?
Oh, sorry.
Do you have?
Thank you guys very much for the presentation and all that you do. I worked the records department like 30 years ago, and you guys have taken on all of that responsibility, and it's a lot. I don't know how you managed to get that done on top of everything else that you do. That's one comment. My other comment is we all, I think, all received an email from a gentleman questioning why we're seeking the advice of an attorney when we have an attorney on the police commission. We're very fortunate that we have an attorney, but that's not his job, and we've been reminded repeatedly that Chubb, this is not Pennsylvania. You have never taken the bar in Connecticut, but you have taken the bar in 3 states. You were top of your law class. I respect your opinion, but I just want people to understand, if we just use Chubb, people wouldn't be happy with that either. So I just want this gentleman to understand that's why we're seeking outside legal advice.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
We appreciate it, like a lot.
Well, I have a comment. I just wanted to thank the chief of the department for the lunch the other day. It was hot out there. You guys were troopers and made it all happen. And I heard from a lot of business owners that were very pleased with getting to meet people and being there. Also want to thank you guys. We really appreciate what you do for our town.
And I hope the next gen program works as smoothly as everybody is hoping.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any others? Ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.